Доброго дня знову. Це
Good afternoon again. This is Media Center Ukraine Odesa. We continue our working day, the first one in the new year. Our second briefing is dedicated to the Children Care Service of Odesa Regional Military Administrations, and now we're having with us Nataliya Utyupina, the head of the service. Ms. Utyupina, can you share the situation with your service in the conditions of war? Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. I would like to start from telling just a few facts about the Children Care Service and our tasks. The Children Care Service is a structural subdivision of the Odesa Regional State Administration, which ensures the implementation of the state policy on the social protection of children, prevention of child neglect and homelessness in the territory of the region. Our service also coordinates the work of local executive bodies, enterprises, institutions, and organizations of all forms of ownership in solving issues of social protection of children and organizing work to prevent child neglect and homelessness. We also work with the requirements of legislation regarding the establishment of guardianship and care of children, and we also keep a record of the children that are deprived of parental care and orphans. With the start of the decentralization reform, we had the following challenges. We had to create such Children Care Service in every oblast, and in the region we have the biggest number of such territorial communities, namely 91 regional communities, but we managed to create such centers. We have 91 regional, 7 district, and 1 regional Children Care Service. Yes, because of the war and because of the martial law, in this year, in the last year, we had the tasks to ensure the protection of rights of children of different age and different categories residing in our region. We started with the protection of the children in our institutions. We have the mental care center for children who reside in families but found themselves in the difficult circumstances, and different type of boarding schools. There was the decision to evacuate children residing in such institutions abroad. Thus, more than 600 children were evacuated to Poland and to Romania. And as of today, they have been staying in those countries for 10 years. They have everything they need there. The representatives of the institutions in Ukraine have also moved with the children abroad to care about these children further on. That's why the representatives and employees of our institutions have been also evacuated to stay with the children abroad 24/7. To take into consideration all interests of our employees, the regional administration ensures rotation of the personnel for them to come back home to have rest, and they are substituted with other employees from our institutions. As of today, we are the second region when it comes to the number of orphans and children deprived of parental care. The statistic says that there are 4,972 children that are registered as orphans and children deprived of parental care. The main policy of both the state and the region is to put children in different types of family care. The children that lost their parents or were deprived of parental care. So around 4,000 children are under guardianship and care. Usually, we say about relatives of these children. We have also the well-developed network of family-type orphanages and families that care about the orphans and children deprived of parental care. There are 56 family-type orphanages in the region. So these are usually families that raise the children which are orphans or deprived of parental care. There are also 173 foster families in the region for orphans. Both in the family-type orphanages and foster families, there are more than 400 children which have the status of orphans or deprived of parental care who are raised in these families. There are also the centers of social and mental rehabilitation. We have 11 centers for social and psychological rehabilitation for children and one shelter. We have the regional center for mental care for children, which is located in Odesa. These are institutions for children whose life or health are endangered in their families. And the children care services take relevant actions to remove such children from the families and to put in on temporary basis in social rehabilitation centers if such children do not have relatives or there are no relatives who want to care about such children. So that's why we have such institutions in our region as well. As I've already mentioned, our priority is to put children in the family-type orphanages or foster families. And our priority is the adoption of such children. 90 children have been adopted as of today. This is a small number for our oblast, but this is due to the martial law, because those children who have been evacuated are limited in their right to be adopted in Ukrainian families, because there is no procedure for putting these children in different types of family care in the territory of Ukraine. But 90 children have been adopted in the region. But in recent years, Odesa Oblast have been the first when it comes to this indicator. So we used to have the biggest number of adopted children. 72 children out of the adopted children have been adopted by citizens of Ukraine and 18 by foreign citizens. There are more than 1,000 children registered for adoption and about 100 candidates for adoption. We have the following process. When a child is registered for adoption, we send referrals and invitations to the candidate families for adoption, for them to get acquainted with the child, and if after that, then can make a decision for adoption. Despite the challenges that we have been facing, we continued ensuring the family care for children. And I would like to say that Ukrainians are the nations with the big heart that continues caring about children who lost their biological parents. And they are ready to care about such children. Under the initiative of the Ombudsman of Ukraine, there have been established a chat bot for families to register there to become candidates for caring about the children who were deprived of parental care. So the biggest surge in the amount of the followers of the chatbots when was the information was received that a lot of children lost their parents because of the hostilities. We're lucky not to have hostilities on the territory of our region. That's why we usually face other cases when children become orphans or are deprived of parental care. Those people who have been registered with the chatbot, they get in contact with other regions to adopt or to care about the children who lost their parents because of the war. I would also like to inform that we also accommodate IDPs and children who come to our territory from the occupied territories of Ukraine or from the territories with active hostilities. We have 56 family-type orphanages in our region, and we also accepted 15 family-type orphanages from other territories with more than 200 children. We provided support to the citizens. We provided accommodation to them. We provided them with the facilities and other types of aid for them to have everything they need and to feel comfortable on the territory of our region. Some of those who know that their houses have been destroyed decide to stay on our territories. Others temporarily reside on our territory and raise their children. As for the children care service, we also focus a lot on provided to orphans and children deprived of parental care with accommodation. In 2021, we received the subvention from the state budget amounting to more than 51 million hryvnias that was provided to the orphans for them to be able to find accommodations. In 2022, those people were supposed to buy apartments or houses, and there were 134 people who received this money, and 78 persons bought housing. Others were not able to do this because of the challenges related to the martial law. Some of them left country to go abroad. Others protect our state and have joined the armed forces of Ukraine. So we continue our activities in this area, and we hope that there will be changes and amendments to the relevant provision for people to be able to buy houses using this subvention. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the floor? I have the question with regard to mental rehabilitation of children who were moved to Odesa region from the occupied territories. So what is their mental condition, and is there the program of the rehabilitation, psychological rehabilitation for children? Yes, we cooperate with different foundations and organizations that provide aid, and also the qualified personnel. Some territorial communities have the positive experience in organizing hubs on their territories to provide the full support to children, including the psychological support. So the internally displaced children residing in our territory can attend these hubs, and they can get there not only psychological support, but there are different types of activities for these children. So these children are involved in different types of activities. And this is helpful to their internally displaced parents when they are employed on our territories and under the condition when not all kindergarten and schools are open. The children can spend time in these hubs. They are not all territorial communities have such hubs, but we're very active and we actively involve partners to increase the number of such hubs to cover all children getting such support. Dmitro Bogomolov, Live News. A small clarification about internally displaced persons. You mentioned that you now have like 15 orphanages for more than 200 children. And how many children, orphans or children deprived of parental care from the occupied territories, are now staying in Odesa orphanages? Do you have such information? The thing is that only orphans or children deprived of parental care that were from family type orphanages, they were moved to our territories. And some institutions that are involved in such care were evacuated abroad. And we have such institutions from other regions that have moved to the western part of our country. But no institutions were moved to the territory of Odesa region. In our institutions, we also don't have children from the occupied territories who are deprived of parental care. All the children who lost their parents or the children moved to our territories are accompanied by their relatives, the godparents or their grandparents, etc. So if we have the information which is accompanied by the documents that the children have lost their parents on the occupied territories, these children are then referred to their relatives. And in our institutions, we have only those children who were deprived of parental care on Odessa, on the territory of Odessa region, due to the fact that their parents failed to meet their duties. We have such a case with a 15-year-old boy from Kherson, and his mom stayed in Kherson with his grandmother. So she put him just on the bus and he traveled here to Odessa. That's why he was first put to the mental care or rehabilitation center according to the procedure. But during that month, their house was destroyed by bombardment in Kherson, and last week the boy's mother and his grandmother moved to Odessa. They rent a flat here, and so the boy was returned to his mother. One more question. Do you have any programs for the 2023? In terms of cooperation with the regional Directorate on Physical Culture and Sport to provide support to the children who have become orphans or have been deprived of parental care in different sport clubs. This is also related to psychological rehabilitation because through the sports, these children can be also supported. As for internally displaced children who moved abroad, this is clear that the institutions there abroad take care about them. Our partners who have invited children abroad, with the support of different volunteers, work with our children there, for them to be also involved in the activities that you've mentioned. As for our region, for those children who have certain benefits because of their status of orphans or deprived of parental care, There are also different types of activities envisaged in schools or other educational institutions, so they can attend these activities free of charge because they have these benefits. But not all schools are now open offline. That's why these classes, these activities are not always there. Because the schools need to have shelters to be open and to work. That's why these children can refer to hubs. And the director of educational department during his briefing last year mentioned that the work isn't going to open more schools for the schools to have shelter. That's why more children will be involved in such activities. When it comes to children who lost their parents because of the Russian aggression, or because their parents joined the armed forces of Ukraine and or they were killed there, or they were killed by Russian shellings. Are there programs for such children? Do we have a lot of such children in Odesa region? And what support and aid they can get from the government? We have some children who lost at least one parent because their father or mother joined the armed forces of Ukraine. And the Children Care Service is not responsible for keeping record of such children because this is not our liability according to the law. But there are such children. And their parents who lost their partner, they are not ready to openly share their emotions, because, for example, a mother can lost her husband because he was killed in the hostilities zone. But there was the recent initiative to congratulate such children who lost at least one of their parents. Our children care service made a post on our Facebook page, and every Ukrainian was able to join this initiative. They contacted our offices, our local offices, and were able to congratulate such mothers who lost their husband on the front line and children who lost their fathers on the front line with the New Year. So this was that's a New Year initiative. But I believe that we should expect legislative changes in the future, because when it comes to the legislative itself, there are no proper amendments. Because when we had the anti-terrorist operation, there was the concept of providing a status to a child suffering the armed conflict. But as of today, the central bodies have not accepted a new decision, because this is no more an anti-terrorist operation. The situation is different. That's why we require legislative amendments to grant the proper status to children suffering the armed conflict, and the status of a child who has lost at least mother or father. Don't we have such status? Perhaps from the Soviet legislation? No. When it comes to orphans and children deprived of parental cares, this is a different situation. But in this case, a child cannot have the status of an orphan or the child deprived of the parental care, because one parent is still alive, one legal representative. You say that you are not responsible for keeping official register for such children, and this is not our liability. And who is responsible for such records keeping? First of all, these are the military institutions who know who was killed there, but This is not our liability. Do we have any other questions? No. Thank you very much for being with us today and sharing the details about your work and your service. And we hope to see you and your colleagues in our center later. So stay with us because at 1 p.m. we will have the briefing of the spokesman to the head of the Odesa Regional Military Administration, Sergei Bratchuk. Stay tuned. Thank you.